Hey everybody, this is Jared, and today we're live on a Saturday. Happy Vlogtober. As people are rolling in, I'm just going to give a quick, well, I want to make sure this camera is okay because I want it to be stationary. I also want to figure out, so as soon as some folks get in, I want to figure out this live chat thing and see if I can't make it work, because I really had intended for this time to also include some Q&A maybe later on in the broadcast. So we will find out. Oh man, this thing. Let's figure out, hey, somebody's on. I can see the chat. That's great. Okay. So I appreciate it, Alex. We'll get to it. So anyway, today we're going to be covering a topic that is kind of near and dear that's been playing on my psyche recently, and that's the topic of the state of Christian music today. Hey, good morning. How's it going? It's good to see you. We've got two Texans in the house today. That's pretty cool. So we're going to be talking about state of Christian music, and I feel very strongly about this topic, specifically where we're at and why Christian music sounds the way it does today. There's a lot of other things that go along with that. So it's going to be a good time, and I love that we've got the chat going. I would love to get your feedback later on in this broadcast, but for now. At least on this channel, we talk a lot about Christian music. We talk about hymns. We talk about worship. We talk about music tutorials and singing, how-tos. But today we're gonna go on a little bit of a tear, and this is mostly born out of a conversation I had with another music minister recently, just a couple days ago. And I'm not going to share his name, which I think you'll recognize why here in a second. But I as soon as we got off this conversation, I typed up some quotes and everything. So I want to get this right here. So I've got my notes here in front of me. But he said, "I'm really struggling right now, and I'm feeling convicted about listening to secular music. I think to myself that it's polluting my mind and that I should only listen to Christian music." I think we've all had this conversation with ourselves at one time or another. He says, "Only listen to Christian music or nothing at all, but I just don't know. I'm not as excited about Christian music as I am with some of the other stuff on the radio. I just don't know." And so out of that conversation that we had together, where we kind of unpacked why he was feeling that way, why these feelings of, things on the radio are just a little bit more catchy. I don't know what to say. Out of this conversation came a couple of things. One is this idea of do we believe? Okay, so we'll just scratch all that. I'm trying to get my thoughts together. But do we believe, as Christians, that God created us in His image, meaning just Christians, or all of mankind, like all women, all men? Is it just us, or is it everybody? And of course we know that it truly is everyone. Everyone is created in God's image. And so part of God's nature, part of God's image, if you will, is creativity. It's this idea that not just Christians are endowed with the Creator's gift. I mean, hey, good morning, it's good to see you. And it just is what it is. I mean, and I don't know, I love this word acceptance of everyone. I love that. I love that idea. Love that. And it really is. It's this idea that we've got to branch out from our ideas about who is gifted and who has the Maker's touch on them. And it just is true that non-Christians are just as gifted as Christians are in this realm, especially when we're talking about music. So right now we're talking about the state of Christian music. For those of you who just jumped on, it's good to see you. So when we know this or recognize this truth, we accept, I love that word, accept others and their imagery, the truth of their nature, then we can kind of let go of some of this animosity that we hold, and we've put Christian music on this pedestal, right? It's good to see you. And if we let go of that, we can see the beauty of the Creator's magic, the Creator's blessing on people, and we shouldn't be prejudiced against them. At least this is what me and he, came to the conclusion of. Maybe we shouldn't be so prejudiced because they just haven't. What's the word I'm looking for? They haven't. Oh man. They haven't attributed, that's the word I'm looking for, attributed their success to the Creator yet. Like, I just believe that. And I think we both came to that realization through this conversation of why is secular music so different than Christian music right now. And the second thing that we kind of came away from this conversation with is that Christian music just, and I'm being real honest here, and this is why I didn't share this other guy's name, but Christian music just isn't at the forefront of creativity as it was. Creativity and innovation. It just is what it is. Like if we look back in the history, like our greatest musicians historically, right, are guys like Bach, Handel, Mozart. Hey, Dr. Dan, it's good to see you, man. And these pillars, Bruckner comes to mind, Thomas Tallis. You go through any period of history or music history. Good morning, guys. And it is so astonishing how the names of the people that we immediately associate with great music are 100% church musicians. Like up until even like the 1800s, like we're talking in the grand scheme of all of history, like they're all church musicians. Like I get it, Mozart wrote some operas and things like that were pretty risque, but like he still wrote the Requiem that we know and love, that we still perform today. Like Bach wrote 300 cantatas. Like it is what it is, right? Handel, we sing at Christmas, Handel's Messiah every year, right? Like, and yeah, you might say it's derivative and you might have some opinions about that, but the truth of the matter is, like, they grew up in the church. That's where they learned their craft. And so I just think we got lost. Like, yeah, I see it. You're playing Schubert's Mass. Like, it is what it is. We went away from that innovation. We released our hold. It was their inspiration. Absolutely. I love that. Like there is something about being inspired by the Creator, and we have gone away from that. So why? Like what happened? Oh, who do we talk about now as being the best artists, the most talented musicians? Like 100% across the board. I mean, 9 times out of 10, I don't want to say 100%, but usually when you ask somebody, it's not going to be a sacred name. Like that's not the person who's coming up on their radar as being the best. If you asked, even if we polled this audience, go ahead, like on the live chat, if you're watching this back on the playback, go ahead and comment. But I'd love to hear who you think right now is the most innovative, the most creative person in the music industry right now. I'd love to see those comments roll in if we could, and just share with one another. Yep, I see them. So as they're rolling in, I'm gonna keep going and kind of talk about why this is happening. What's going on here? Yeah, I see Toby. So that is a sacred name. That's pretty cool. But why is this happening? And I really believe it's because of the commercialization of the music industry, at least especially like today. Like people are out for the money. Like how many views is it getting? How many downloads is it getting? And how many people are listening? I really do believe that somewhere along the line, like I see it, Post Malone, like we have gone away from the sacred nature of inspiration. Not just that, but like it's become about the money. Like I just believe that. I don't know if that's going to be a popular opinion, but it's just what I think. And when that happened, like it stopped being God inspired. So like beyond that, also the second prong of why this is happening is because I think we let the public school system take over the education of our musicians. Like and I know we've got some educators in the audience right now, like watching it live, and I'm sure we've got a couple in the playback, watching this post, but like we allowed, like handed off the music education part. I mean, it just is, right? I mean, I see the comments coming in, but like we handed it off. We gave it away. We let the church take a back seat in the education process for musicians. And so they weren't growing up, learning hymns, learning this. Yeah. I mean, I just believe that. And so in the start of it, it was good intentions. Guys like Lowell Mason at the turn of the century were doing, music education and trying to get us back to, better music, and was doing the singing schools and things like that. I'm sure some of you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you can look it up, Google it, it's fine. I think I've done a couple Lowell Mason hymn histories maybe in the past or something. But and out of that came this idea that like it needs to be public, like everyone needs to learn music, which I agree with 100%. But when the public schools picked it up, then at the beginning, like the church and it was, Christianity was acceptable in the public school system, and like it's great. Hey, I appreciate you stopping in. Really do appreciate it, and we'll have a great day. If you got to leave, go ahead. We're gonna keep on rolling. But I just think that. I just know what it is. And so as slowly as things became more standardized in the public school system, like God got removed. And that's fine from a standardization standpoint, except for like it's hard to justify doing hymns. I just think that. I think it's hard to justify things like that. And so that's why people stopped learning the sacred side of music. Like, what about the church where the music starts is not the center of, yeah, exactly. Like, it's not the center. It's not the centerfold. The church is no longer where the music learning happens. So when the public schools start picking it up, then the church let go. They said, oh, this is already being covered, but they didn't anticipate the future where the church was going to be taken out of it 100%. So I just think that's why largely the church has lost its status. I just do. Then what happened, I think we're talking about within the past 20 or 30 years, and some of you guys remember folks like this, but we saw churches started hiring one-man band, music ministers. Some of you know what I'm talking about. The guy, and it's so funny, like when you think of this, what a music minister is, some of us have this idea to this day of a guy and his guitar, chilling, and spotlight, the fog's going, you know what I'm talking about, and you know exactly who I'm talking about. Then what ends up happening is this one-man band was really popular for a time, but then the pendulum swung from this really like introspective music to a desire, right, to engage bigger communities of musicians. Like we started seeing bands crop back up from the one person to like several people, and then it became a praise band instead of like a praise guy, right? Yeah, solo to praise team. And then what happened is now we're seeing even further swinging, like it's still on the upward swing back to where it was, where we want to engage even more people, but not everyone can play an instrument. So we started these like mini choirs of 4 or 5 people who were singing on stage and that were in front of the band. And then this mini choir turned into real choirs. Well, the bigger these ensembles got, the less these one-man band guys were able to handle it. Like they didn't have the music education background. They didn't have the rehearsal technique background, the ensemble work that they needed. So like now we're seeing them, I mean, it just is what it is, but they're getting fired and new people are cropping back in, because that's the desire. Like, we have a desire for the music community and for greatness and excellence in worship. I talk about this a lot. I don't know about on this channel, but with my choir and my handbells and my praise team, I talk extensively about bringing what we call at the church a worthy offering. Now, what this stems from, and maybe somebody help me out in the comments, but like one of the brother duos, it's either Cain and Abel or Isaac and Jacob. I don't remember which one, but somebody help me out here. But it's all about this idea that like the two brothers brought an offering, right? And God said to one, like, this is worthy, and it burnt up, and it was pleasing, you know, to God. And the other brought leftovers. Yeah, Cain and Abel. I see it. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Cain and Abel. So you know, one brother brings the worthy offering, the first, the best, you know, of the livestock that he was in charge of, as a sacrifice to God. Cain, and that's why he was jealous. Like, you know, Cain goes back and hands off like whatever produce was left. Yeah, Cain and Abel. And and God saw that. Like, it was apparent that this wasn't the best. Like, this was not a worthy offering. Like, that's just the nature. And so we as a church need to think deeply about not necessarily excellence or like a good production. Like, I really don't like that verbiage, but we do have to think, I think, more about this concept of the worthy offering. Like, what are we bringing to God, and is it our best? Like, how many people are thinking in those terms? I don't know. I think more of us are thinking in those terms than at certain points in our church history. But now I think it's more important than ever, you know? That's awesome. That's awesome, awesome, awesome. I love the comments that are going on. Keep it up, guys. So that's what happened, is we lost these fundamentals. We lost our hold on the pipeline for music education. And then, yeah, the first fruits, that's exactly what it's called. And so I think we see this in a lot of places, but like even children's ensembles have a desire. Like, we see a lot more children's ensembles who are doing special productions on Christmas, on Easter, on VBS during the summer. Like, parents have a desire to see their kids do something excellent. And so these one-man band guys just can't handle it. And part of like what we're talking about here is why I speak so heavily on hymns, why I speak so heavily on, you know, on traditional music, is because it's not caught up in the times that we're living in here. It doesn't have the same baggage that we have. It just doesn't. Like, it has been tried and true. It's been put through the ringer, and it's come out on the other side as being a worthy offering. Like, generations of people have said, "A mighty fortress is our God," not just in the original German, but the translated English is a worthy offering. Like, if you agree with me, I'd love to see you hit that thumbs up button while we're sitting here. I see several of you just joined us, so I appreciate you joining the rant here. And I apologize for taking up so much of the oxygen in the room here. But I would love to see if you tap that thumbs up, give me a like if you're agreeing with what I'm saying here. And I see several of you are already doing that, if you're on the live stream or if you're on the playback. So I appreciate that. Yep, thumbs up. Hey, I see ya. How's it going? It's good to see you this morning. So this idea of, I just do think, and it's not just that, but we had a bunch of hymn writers. I mean, the church does, I see what you're saying. The church really does rarely, several of the churches, especially who have gone to this full contemporary model, you know, going back to these old, tried and true, you know, hymns are so important. And there's so many of the hymn writers, and there's so many of these people. But nowadays, when in our church music, we see only a couple of names pop up. Like, the people who are doing it really well are the only people, the only music that we're singing. Like, and I think we know instinctively who those people are, right? like who comes to mind who's doing it well? In my mind, Elevation Worship out of Hotlanta, like they're doing a great job, and they're really popular right now. Bethel out of help me, California is it has been around for a long time, and they consistently put out pretty good, pretty popular music. And then, of course, Hillsong out of Australia, like they're doing really good stuff too, both on the solo side and on the congregational side of music. And so, but those are the big three. Like those are the only churches. Yeah, well, wow, Hillsong. Yep, they are the only churches who are consistently putting out quality stuff. And so all of the churches are singing like these three churches' music. But before we had guys like Lowell Mason, we had and man, I can't believe that I'm having trouble coming up with hymn writers' names. Like poets like Fanny Crosby come to mind. We had Martin Luther, who wrote chorales, and Gaither is good from the gospel tradition. I don't know how many tunes and songs we sing nowadays, but it's good to note, like there are only a handful of churches that are doing it right and that we're singing nowadays. And not only that, but there are only a handful of people who are doing it right even in the solo realm. Like I think if you don't know who Tadashi Lecrae is, yeah, John Calvin, I like that from the hymnody. Like if you know who Lecrae and Tadashi is, like look them up. They're doing great. Mostly, and I hate to say this because it's not really my jam, but like hip hop and rap artists that are Christian, like they're the innovators right now, which is crazy to me because they're speaking truth. There's truth in the lyrics. And I think that's what we kind of went away from here. Yeah, Torrin Wells is a good one. Hills and Valleys and his single Known, I think is great. If you check Torrin Wells out, I think that's a great, Torrin Wells. And another name that comes to mind is Keith and Kristen Getty with Stuart Townend, who call themselves modern hymnists. I think they're doing a great job too. Like, I just do. I think they're fabulous in what they're trying to do. Songs like How Great the Father's Love for Us, How Great the Father's Love for Us. I'm sure several of you know that tune. And they've got several others that just aren't coming to mind right away. But their modern hymnody is trying to take us back to reinvent or rebuild some of those bridges. So I'd love to know what you guys think on this topic of, and we've already got conversations going, and I love that, but the state of Christian music today. Do we have any questions, comments, or concerns that we kind of need to cover here? Because I would love to do either some Q&A or just maybe cover, is there something that you guys have a question about on here? Okay, I see Mark Lowry and David Phelps, who both came from, got put on by, Gaithers, from the Gaither vocal band. I love that. And yeah, they're still producing content. Like Mark Lowry is still on the circuit, at least from the comedy standpoint. And he's doing tours right now, I think, which is awesome. And David Phelps just came to Dallas, I think, not too long ago, less than a year ago. So he's touring also. Lost a lot of weight too, it looks like. So he must be hustling. So all good people, all good names. But I'd love to hear from you. What do you think about this idea? Is any of this resonating with you? Do you agree? Do you disagree about this topic of the state of Christian music? Love to hear what I'm just going to give it a second and give you some air here. Are we living... Okay, I got this question. What do you do when your church has a very vocal minority of people who want to switch to praise music, but the majority doesn't? That's a great question. I think there's room for both in a church. I don't know if that's going to be a popular opinion because so many churches have tried this blended model, but I think they do it wrong. I really do. I think what they try and do is both separately, like separate you know, I think we all know when I say these words, separate but equal, like we know that historically hasn't worked, right? Or at least the concept of that hasn't worked. And so, or the practitionship of separate but equal. And so what we've tried to do is do that same thing in our churches, right? Yeah, the blending, of blending, but the traditionalists don't like that idea of blending. Yeah, I get that. So I think the way to truly do a blend is to incorporate modern instruments into tried and true songs, or songs that have a clear theology, have clear reasons and rationale behind them. Songs like Keith and Kristen Getty are putting out, like How Deep the Father's Love for Us. I think that's great. So I agree. So you're saying, yeah, hymns plus guitar, sure, like camp meeting revival stuff, but also other instruments. Like I think it might be interesting to see somebody try and incorporate electronic music into hymns. I just do. Like, how do we do EDM well? And I know that's going to be sacrilegious to some of you, and I apologize, but what would that look like just as an experiment? Like, would people enjoy that? Would it freshen things up? And I think that's how blended needs to look, is take the traditionalism of the text, of the tune, don't change that, but change the practice, change the way that it sounds, the way that it acts, and you keep the core. Part of the reason I think this, and I don't know how many of you have thought in these terms, but I think very often praise song seems to be 210, 2 lines sung 10 times. Yeah, exactly. And so, but I'm gonna come back to that here in a second. But I really do think that, oh man, what was I thinking about? Uh-oh, this is trouble. Oh, the universal church. I don't know how many of you think in terms like this, but recently I've really been formulating this idea of what I call the universal church. Christian dubstep, yeah, it's funny. Not that far maybe, but something similar, like just incorporating some of those ideas. This universal church idea, though, I'd like to get back to that, is so interesting because I really do believe in it. And what I mean by this is, like, do you believe that the church is a global church? And I think most of us would say, yes, we think that the church is a global church. Like, we think that when we pray, it doesn't matter where we are in the church or in the world, like that prayer is going to wrap around. We can pray for people in Africa. We can pray for people in Australia, right? Like, we can pray for people in, who are being persecuted in China, like mainland China. Like, we know this. We understand that. But I think the universal church goes beyond just across town or across state or across the country. I think that the universal church also wraps around all of time as well as all of space. Now, what I mean by that is when I sing a hymn that has been sung for ages, I believe that we tap into this idea, this concept of the universal church. I believe that when we tap into Amazing Grace, when we tap into Jesus Paid It All, which I just did a hymn history on, which is why it's on my mind, but when we tap into this concept, like, the boundaries of space and time are broken down. We join with that cloud of witnesses where when I sing Amazing Grace, I'm not just singing with the people around me at that place, at that location. I believe truly that I am singing with my grandfather, that I'm singing with my father, that I'm singing with my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. So this idea of the universal church is partly what drives why I so strongly believe in keeping hymns relevant and keeping them alive. Because these are ones that have survived, not just because of their merit, but also because we are able to use them to tap into this concept of the universal church, the global church. Like, we sing Amazing Grace with people who are singing it in Swahili, somewhere else around the globe. And we're singing with everyone who has sung it through all of space and time. And so I just that. I don't know, maybe you guys have thought of this before, maybe you haven't, thought of it in those terms or whatever, but I think it's interesting for us to think about in those terms. I just do. Any good Christian song requires conviction, and that's part of why I love that comment. I think that's part of why there is conviction here, at least on my part, that the words mean something, the text that we sing is important, and not only that, but in order to sing with my great grandchildren, I've got to find the hymnody that they're going to be singing, and so keeping things relevant is important. Yeah. That is why Mark Lowry is so universal. That's so true. Absolutely. Well, we're coming up on the half-hour mark, and I think I've taken up enough of your time. Are there any closing words that we needed to talk about, or is there a question that went unanswered here this morning? I do think it's important to adopt music for the purpose of meeting as a congregation. Yeah, I get that. I do. I think that's important too. So true from Todd. Hymns have so much history connected to them. Hebrews 11. And I bet I could look that up real quick. Let's find out. Luke and John, Acts and the letter to the Romans, right? I'm having to roll through here. Let's see. Let's find out. Yes. There it is. This is verse 4. That's interesting. Oh, yeah. Great. I'm going to find out, for those who died in faith, by faith. That's interesting. Wow, okay. So that's interesting. There's a lot, Hebrews 11 is an interesting passage to quote. It's too long for me to read out loud, unfortunately, but it is interesting because I love that. Do I think that there is no limit to Christian music genres? I don't. And the thing is, we talked earlier about how Christian music used to be on the forefront, used to be on the cutting edge. We used to be the one who invented those music genres. Like, we're the people who invented everything that happened from 1100 to 1850. Like, it was the genres, well, for the most part, like there were troubadours and things like that, but the genres of music that, as we understand them, were largely sacred genres. But we didn't invent EDM. We didn't invent trap music. We didn't invent, some of the more contemporary styles that we're seeing crop up. And I just think that's a shame that we need to get back on the cutting edge. I think, if nothing else, I would encourage you, if you've got a gift for this, if you've got a talent, I'm talking to the one person out there who's watching this on the playback that's not watching it live. Maybe one of you is watching it live who has this gift and talent. But I would encourage you, if you think that you've got the gift for either creating text or creating music, that you go home right now and punch up something, anything. Just make an attempt and put it out there. Put it out on SoundCloud, put it out on, on Spotify, and just see if it sticks. And then get better, because we need to be on the cutting edge. We need to be back in the driver's seat of innovation. And I just believe that's the way that we're gonna get there, is to actually do. So go with this benediction. I'm wrapping up here. 32-minute mark. It's my favorite number. We're just gonna end it here. But I appreciate all of that caught this live, and for those of you who are watching it back on the playback, my question to you is the same. What is your favorite contemporary artist in the sacred space? And what is your favorite song that has come out in the last, let's say, 5 years from a Christian artist on the scene? I'd love for you just to populate, not on the live chat, but after this chat is over, jump back into the regular comments, because these are going to go away, everybody. Jump into the regular comments, give this thing a like, and let me know what you think is your favorite Christian artist of today, and your favorite sacred song that has come out of that, whatever genre it's a part of. I would love to hear what you think and what's your favorite. So go with this benediction. Go with the knowledge that Christ has given you the great gift of his creativity, and his inspiration lives in you in his image. Go in peace.